YouTube, what's going on? Hi, I am Giancarlo, also known as Maestro G on YouTube and Maestro G Music on Twitch. I'm here to help y'all for your all set audition. This video is primarily for my students. If it helps you, that's great. I'm glad that it did. We're gonna go through number 34 for the shorter etudes. And I do want to say there are timestamps. So there's a certain part you want to go to. You can just jump to that spot right there. This is going to be mildly, like barely edited video. Because I want y'all to hear, I want you to hear everything. If I mess up, I want you to hear it. I want you to see how do I recover from that. I want you to see all those things. Because in real life experience, that's probably what's going to happen. And that's totally cool. All right, we switch mics. Okay. So YouTube, question. So I'm gonna treat this video as if you were a student of mine and we were taking lessons, right? This was a lesson. Was it perfect? No, not by any means. As you heard at the end, I messed up a note. I played open D instead of holding an E. It is what it is. It happens. It's gonna happen on the day of audition, most likely for most people. And by that I mean like 99.99% of people. So probably you. Other than that, maybe there was a dynamic that I missed. Maybe there was a double stop that wasn't perfectly in tune. It is what it is. It's gonna happen. Now the important thing is you just don't stop. You keep going. This etude is it can be a little bit nasty with the double stops. It's kind of rough, especially when you have a perfect fifth. In other words, when you play a double stop, when you play two notes with the same finger, we call that that's usually a perfect fifth. Those can be really, really tough, and we're gonna talk about that in a bit. Now, first thing is first, we're gonna talk about the rhythm. So be careful. The rhythm is in cut time. I had some students play as if it were in common time. In other words, if it was in 4/4, it is in 2/2. So you got to subdivide 1 and 2 and instead of thinking 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got to start thinking, especially when you have the dotted half notes. We're going to look at that in a second. So in the beginning, you have 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and right. So you have 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So you want to subdivide. You don't want to be the person who's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're already way behind the curve. Be careful. Jump to the first line, the very last measure. We want to subdivide. In other words, you want to count the beats of a specific note in your head. So if we have the dotted half note, there are 3 quarter notes that fit in that dotted half note. So you want to think 1, 2, 3, right? So you have you want to think 1, 2, 3, then you move on to the next one. But because this is in cut time, you're going to think about it twice as fast. You're going to think 1 and 2, which is the 3, 1 and 2. Then the quarter note, you move on. 1 and 2 and 1. 1 and 2 and 1. So you have 1 and 2. 1 and 2. That part, right? Again, if anything that I just mentioned was too fast, you could always rewind. You could also slow down the video. So just take advantage of that. But to keep things efficient, or at least I'm trying to, we're just gonna look at another section. So with your rhythms, be careful when you get to the third line. 1, 2, 3. The third line, the last measure of the third line. I've had some students not hold the A all the way through. So what I mean by that is when they do and they play that last note without the A, you gotta hold the open A. It's a double stop for that entire measure. Just be careful. All right. Outside of that, I think that's most of the rhythmic things. Now we'll talk about. I should have mentioned this first, but I'll mention it now. How to start, right? When you start, you're probably gonna be freaking out. You might, or you might be like not like most people, and you'll be super calm. It's just how it is, and it's totally okay to feel that way. What I have my students do sometimes is I'll have them do jumping jacks, or I'll have them run up and down the stairs, and then have them do just run through it. It doesn't matter if they mess up, just run through it, because your heart's gonna be pumping a lot. It's gonna be pumping really fast because you're nervous, and that's okay. I still get nervous. A lot of professionals get nervous still to this day, and that's totally normal. It shows that you care. So I think that's a good thing. Now, when you start, what can help with that, when you're in the moment, you can't go to the bathroom, you can't make an excuse, you're right here. What you want to do, what I would advise is you take your time, and by that, I don't mean like take like 5 years to get ready. Don't take 5 minutes either. You just sit down. You want to make sure you got good form everywhere. Look at your bow grip. Look at your posture. Everything feels comfortable. Everything feels grounded. You look at the music. You want to breathe. Make sure you get a nice grip on your bow. And by grip, I don't mean like you're pressing down and then you play that note. No. You just settle in, breathe. You're ready, and 1. So you want to make sure you breathe. I would highly, highly suggest practicing just starting the piece. That's it. Spend like maybe 5 minutes just practicing starting the piece. Run up and down. Do some jumping jacks. Do some push-ups. Do something. Get your heart racing, and then you can start it. Okay. Now, moving on from that subject, we're going to go and talk about the double stops, the meat and potatoes of, as the saying goes, the meat and potato of this etude are the double stops. They're not easy for most middle schoolers, for most people in general, but especially for middle schoolers, it's not easy. The way that I teach it, you don't have to take this. This is just my advice. But the way that I teach I teach it to my students is you want to feel as if you really don't ever want to squeeze your fingers. You don't want to squeeze them. You want to use your arm to pull down on the string. So you're gonna want to pull. I'm gonna turn this way so you get a better angle. So I'm not just pressing. I'm not pressing my fingers, right? I'm pulling, and when I gotta change to the next one, I let go, and then I pull. This is what I like to call bouncing. I personally call it that way because I just think about my arm is bouncing, right? So you have, when you play the first double stop, you pull, then you let go a little bit, but not too much so you can still get a good sound. and you bounce back for the next one. It's going to make it to where you don't feel so much pain in your wrist or in your hand. You're like, oh my gosh, like I just feel really uncomfortable or my hand hurts after I played that. So that's what I would suggest. You don't have to take it, but that's just what I say. It gives you time to play the chord, the double stop, and set up for the next one. Right? Now, another tip. Let's say you're already doing that, or you're doing something similar to that, or maybe not that at all. But you have your fingers on the right, you have the fingers on the tape. You have your fingers on the right note. But they don't sound right for some reason. It sounds like that. Or it sounds sharp. Something like that. The tricky part about this is why I always suggest going back to the bouncing. It makes your life 10 times easier. When you play a double stop, if you're pulling and if you have too much weight, I'm not talking about pressure. I'm talking about weight because you're pulling. If you got too much weight on one string over the other, it might have, if you put too much weight on your D string, but not enough weight on your A string, it's not going to sound good. So you're going to want to see how much weight do you need on both strings. Let's say if I put more weight on my A string than on my D string. That doesn't sound in tune. But if I had tapes, my finger would be on the tapes. So I got to find out. So I hope you can hear that and I hope you see that you got to have a good amount of weight distribution. Well, the bad news is it's not going to be the same for every cello. Depending on the cello that you have, and there's no really general thing, you either might have to have your arm back, or you might have to bring it forward, or you might just have to mess around with it. You might have to mess around with it and see how much weight you need. That's the tricky part about this Etude. If you can do that for all of your double stops, it works the same exact way. Let's find another example. When you have okay, I'm gonna do this in slow motion. I want you to watch what my arm is doing. And I'm gonna do it this way so you get a better view. See if I remember the notes. All right. So you have your first one. You bounce. You gotta get the right mix. For when you do that, you just keep playing. Just bring up your elbow, and it'll cause your finger to curve naturally. You want to keep that bouncing motion to alleviate some tension. All right, now for the nasty ones. When I'm talking about nasty, I'm talking about the ones that are the perfect fits. I'd say the worst double stop or the most annoying one to me is the second line towards the end, where you have that was rough because you're using the weakest finger, which is your pinky, to play that. You can do you can do a couple options. Option 1. You pair 3 and 4 together. The weight of your third finger will help to compensate. In other words, it'll help to make up for the lack of strength in your pinky. But I always bounce. let's say you don't want to do that. Let's say you don't bounce, right? Or you don't want to learn how to do that. That's totally fine. I'm going to give you another alternative. What you can do is just, you can do that. You can just bring it down, but you're going to have to really, you're going to have to find the right angle, and you might feel tension in your wrist. You can just throw it down if you want to, and you can put all the pressure that you want. I wouldn't recommend it, but I wouldn't recommend it. So yeah, you want to make sure you get that right balance. The weight that we talked about earlier, same exact concept, same exact thing that you want to go for. All right, next up is that tricky part in the second to last line with all those slurs. That part. Okay. When you're doing a string crossing, you want to imagine that you are rolling onto the string and you're falling the other way. So with your upper arm, I'm not talking about with your hand. We're not doing none of this, right? We're not doing none of this. You roll up and you fall down. So you roll up and you fall down. You don't want to do, this is what you don't want to do. Watch. You don't want to get, oh, I need to be on this string and it's not fluid. Or you don't want your wrist to do, you don't want your wrist to do one of those things. I'm looking over here because I can see myself, but the camera's right here. So when you do this part, do it slow. And focus, oh, what are the notes? You want to focus on falling and rolling. Roll, fall. I do it on open strings. I would just do it on open strings. All you're doing is bringing up your elbow and bringing it down. That's it. Up, down, up, down, up, down. If I took my ball, I'm just going up, down, up, down. That's it. That's all you're doing. Up, down, up, down, up, down. And because if your hand is relaxed, it's gonna follow through with it. So you have. Now that shift, that's a big gap. That's a big jump right there. That's a really big jump. I'll give you a tip. Here's what I would recommend. When you get to that F, you don't need all of your fingers down to play F natural. You just need your pinky. And if you want to use your ring finger, you could do that if you want. But you don't need 1 and 2. So you want to, slow motion, you want to prepare your arm to get to the note. And as soon as you play the note here, my arm is falling before I even get to the note. I'll do it again. Watch my arm carefully. I'm going to do a slow motion. You saw how my elbow was already coming down, so I can get there quicker. You just want to fall. That part. Now, we're going to talk about something that's very important. Dynamics. A lot of students, man. Y'all can't forget about the dynamics. It's super important that we take that into consideration. You got mezzo forte, then you got piano. It switches back and forth between them. You have crescendos, so make that happen, right? But the way that you do it is you either use more bow or you use less bow. So I'm gonna take the third line as an example. So the third line we have then piano, right? I want you to watch how much bow I'm using when I do that. Then less bow. You're still keeping the same amount of weight that you're using, but just less. Less bow that you're using. As opposed to I'm using a lot more. I'm not thinking about how much I have to push down. I'm thinking more so how fast and light can I move my bow during that time, right? Remember, you slow down. When you do the decrescendo, look at how my bow slows down. Then you're ready for piano, because you're using a little bit of bow. That's why it's so important. Slow down and then use little bow. Keep using the same. There's no crescendo there. If there's no crescendo, don't do it. Just keep it at the dynamic it's asking you to do it. Then the crescendo comes. So you're gonna use more weight. Drop. Imagine that your arm is sinking into the string. You're not pushing down. You're sinking down. Then that's your first forte at the A, right? So on and so forth. Now the next part. That part, you got your hairpins. Not the whole thing is not supposed to sound super strong and romantic. It's also not supposed to all sound very soft. You're gonna have the hairpins. So you use normal amount of bow, then speed up the bow, then slow down the bow, then speed up the bow, then slow down, and then right? And then for the last line, it can be a little bit tricky because sometimes you have an open D, sometimes you have an E. That's why the bouncing really helps to reset that mindset. So you have bounce, make sure you hold it for both, not what I just did earlier, and then individually. And that one is by itself. Audition tips, right? I think I mentioned it earlier, but the judges won't really care if you have the best sounding cello. They don't care. They don't care if your cello's $200. They also don't care if your cello's $2 million. What they care about is, does the student know how to tell a story from this piece? Does the student know how to play dynamics? Does the student know how to use their bow effectively? So these are like the things that are important to think about. It's not so much so that you got to be perfect, because that good luck finding that. That's not gonna happen. But the whole point is, if you've done everything that you could, I'm talking about everything that you could to prepare for this audition that you have coming up. It could be for you in middle school. It could be for maybe when you want to get into your chamber orchestra or your honors orchestra at your school or in your city. If you've done everything that you can to prepare for it and it doesn't go well, guess what? That's life. But the thing is, you wouldn't have pushed yourself so far if it weren't for that audition. So I think it would be a good payoff because you made progress. So don't be I would encourage you to not be bummed out if things don't go the way that you want them to. If you play every note perfect and you still and they don't pass you in the audition, you don't really know why. It might not have been that. It may have been other things, which can be talked about in another video. But that's not important for this one. So with that being said, yeah, if this helped you, do me a favor and go ahead and like it, because when you like it, it shares the video to more people, so it can be helpful for other people. If you want to take lessons as well, then by all means, there is my information on my YouTube page, but also my social medias, and I also do online lessons through. I can do online lessons through Zoom or FaceTime or whatever the case may be. Just reach out and we can set something up. So good luck, have fun, and yeah, I hope everything works out. Peace.